If you think the only way to reach holiness is to renounce the mortal world and bury your youth in cold monasteries, you are dead wrong. There is a religious organization that has proven you can absolutely grab a ticket to heaven even while busy manipulating power and accumulating billions of dollars in wealth. Sounds like a cheap conspiracy theory straight out of Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, right? Stop living in a movie fantasy, because the reality behind it is 100 times more bizarre and gritty. What really happens behind the velvet curtain of Opus Dei? An organization beautifully extolled as the work of God. Just imagine. No need to wear monk robes, no need for ascetic fasting. You wear designer suits, sit in executive chairs, work as a surgeon or a university professor, yet you are bound by a psychological discipline so harsh that people have to call it institutional abuse. Under the guise of honoring everyday work, this organization has extended its octopus tentacles into over 80 countries, rounded up 90,000 members, and snatched an unprecedented legal privilege from the Vatican. They only bow to the Pope and completely cold-shoulder the rest of the earth. Accused of being a brainwashing cult, a global political machine hiding under the shadow of faith. They only respond with the arrogant silence of those who know exactly what kind of power they hold. In the end, what on earth did that young priest, Josemaría Escrivá, see on that morning of 1928? A vision from God, or a perfect blueprint to seize both the secular and spiritual worlds? Get a cold head ready, because today we are going to expose the pages of history that people only want to hide away under a veneer of holiness. Welcome to the dark corners of dark history, and I am Zorro. Imagine, October 2nd, 1928, a young Spanish priest sits alone in a retreat house in Madrid. Church bells ring outside the window. He, or rather his reverence, Josemaría Escrivá, 26 years old, is experiencing a moment that theology calls a charism. But we, mere mortals of flesh and blood, can call it a flash of genius. He suddenly realized God was tired of only listening to prayers from distant monasteries. He needed the businessman closing million-dollar contracts, the mother chopping onions in the kitchen, and the professor holding forth on the lecture podium. All of a sudden, secular work was no longer a barrier separating humans from holiness. It was the very ladder to climb into heaven. And from that seemingly simple idea, 60 years later, what do we have? An organization named Opus Dei, operating in over 80 countries, more than 90,000 members, a fortune amounting to billions of dollars. The Vatican even handed them an ultimate immunity card, an unprecedented legal status that makes them bow to only one single person on this earth, the Pope. No one else. A cult? A global political machine masquerading as a religion? Or a sophisticated system of psychological abuse? Opus Dei denies it all with the arrogant confidence of those who know exactly what kind of power they hold in their hands. But to understand this giant machine, we must turn back the clock, return to the cradle that created its chief engineer. January 9th, 1902. Barbastro, a provincial town in the Aragon region of northeastern Spain. Josemaría Escrivá was born into a devout bourgeois family. His father, José, sold chocolate and textiles. A typical Catholic family, not fanatical to the point of self-flagellation, but viewing faith like the air they breathed, like the quiet current of water they were swimming in. But life rarely chooses to stay quiet forever. At 2 years old, Escriva faced death. The doctors shook their heads. You already know what devout mothers would do. His mother, Dolores, carried her gasping child to the shrine of Our Lady of Torre-Ciudad, and boom, the boy came back to life. A miracle? Naturally, his family believed so. And more importantly, the seed of being chosen by God was planted in the child's mind. However, the event that shaped his razor-sharp character took place when he was 12, a bone-chilling winter in Barbastro. Young Josemaria saw a trail of bare footprints imprinted in the snow. They were the footprints of a Carmelite monk, dragging his feet around town despite the biting cold. Try putting yourself in the shoes of a 12-year-old child. Most of us would think, this uncle is crazy, why doesn't he put on shoes? But Escriva didn't. He looked at those bleeding footprints and felt a jolt in his soul. It was physical proof that devotion to God is not an abstract concept floating in the clouds. It leaves tracks, it bleeds, it exists right here on this earth. 2 years later, at age 14, harsh reality dealt a fatal blow. His father's company went bankrupt. They lost everything. At the same time, Escriva's 3 sisters passed away one after another. Do you think this tragedy would crush the teenage boy? No, absolutely not. Their family moved to Logroño, then Zaragoza, rebuilding from the ashes with a strange dignity of the bourgeoisie of that era, resilience in public. Keeping face when falling to the bottom of society is an art form in itself. And this is the key to decoding Escriva. He did not view suffering as something meaningless to complain about. To Escriva, suffering, poverty, loss, and even backbreaking work, they were raw materials, raw ore, not to be resigned to, but to be melted down and forged. He believed that it was precisely within that secular mess that humans could meet God most clearly. In 1925, at the age of 23, Escriva was ordained a priest. On the outside, he was just an ordinary young priest doing trivial chores in parishes without the glowing visions seen in Renaissance paintings. But deep inside, everyone who knew him felt an invisible pressure. A man compressing himself, silently waiting for a blueprint from God. And that blueprint was exactly what appeared in that retreat room in 1928, the thing that would reshape the entire order of the Catholic Church. For thousands of years, the Catholic Church has operated like a multinational corporation with an organizational chart that couldn't be more rigid. A spiritual hierarchy where your position determined your distance from God. Let me summarize this organizational chart for you to easily visualize. The top tier, the board of directors, the clergy, priests, bishops, cardinals, those who don gorgeous robes, completely abandoning the secular realm to become the exclusive bridge to the supreme being. The middle tier, middle management, the monks and nuns, those who hide behind the thick stone walls of monasteries, chanting prayers day after day and vowing to live lives of poverty and chastity. The bottom tier, the laity, you and me, mere mortals of flesh and blood struggling to pay rent, wading through the daily grind of money and food. From a traditional perspective, we might be good people, but in terms of spiritual status, we remain forever second-class citizens, swimming in the stagnant pond of the secular world, hoping to catch a standby ticket to heaven. But on that October morning of 1928, with a razor-sharp vision, Josemaría Escrivá dropped a bomb onto this entire hierarchy. No, he did not call for the overthrow of the Pope. He did something far more sophisticated. He hacked the system. Escriva declared, "Holiness is not the exclusive privilege of those who lock themselves in monasteries. A woman washing dishes, a lawyer drafting a corporate merger contract, or a doctor performing heart surgery, all of them can reach the peak of holiness equal to, or even far surpassing, an anchorite monk." Sounds romantic, right? But stop for a second to see the terrifying nature of its practicality. Escriva's key lay not in the action, but in the intention. If work is the path leading to God, then an organization of people yearning for holiness does not need to flee into deep forests. It can and must take root right in the heart of the world, right inside law firms, in universities, in the government apparatus, on Wall Street. And here is Escriva's stroke of genius. If secular work is a form of prayer, then the higher your position, the more power you have, the more people you influence, the grander your work of sanctification becomes. Suddenly, the ambition for power and religious faith no longer cancel each other out. They merge into one. Welcome to the formula for creating a billion-dollar empire. But don't be quick to think Escriva was just a wealth course guru masquerading as a priest. He did not sit in an ivory tower sketching out idealistic theories. The early years after 1928, our Opus Dei corporation looked quite pathetic. No headquarters, no license, no recognition from the Vatican. Just a young priest and a scattered handful of college students gathering in cramped apartments in Madrid. They whispered about grand ideals, prayed together, and went to confession. But when stepping out of those apartments, where did Escriva go? He lunged into the garbage-strewn slums. He spent hours in the most wretched hospitals in Madrid, closing the eyes of the dying, breathing in the thick air, smelling of blood, antiseptics, and despair. Escriva's doctrine on holiness and work was not born in libraries smelling of fresh paper. It was forged from the mud. He understood the price of backbreaking labor, understood that secular life is inherently full of thorns and bitterness. It gave him an invaluable credibility, an authority that all civil law or theology doctoral degrees combined could never buy. Those who followed him trusted him absolutely, because they saw him actually getting his hands dirty in the mud of the world. And then the year 1930 arrived. Escriva announced he had just received a software update directly from God, a second revelation. Its content, Opus Dei needed to open its doors wide to welcome women as well. Sounds like a highly gender-equal step forward for the 20th century, right? Don't celebrate too soon. The women's branch was established, but from the very first moment it was completely isolated from the men's branch. An invisible but solid wall was erected. Two parallel universes coexisted within the same organization, operating with strict rules and absolute segregation. This polarization did not just last a few years, it is maintained to this very day. Feminist theologians and a multitude of former members have called it an oppressive system, a calculated stranglehold. But to Escriva and his loyalists, it was a perfect order, a necessary iron discipline to keep the work of God from being defiled. They were consolidating their forces step by step, piece by piece, but they did not know that right outside the windows of those small apartments in Madrid, the Spanish sky was swirling with thick dark clouds. A storm of blood was coming, and it would sweep everything away, except for those who knew how to survive. History is never a straight line. It is a giant meat grinder. And in the 1930s, Spain was the epicenter of that grinder. You had communism, fascism, anarchism, all colliding to create deadly sparks. At that time, if you were a priest in Madrid, you didn't just need faith. You needed the survival instincts of a sewer rat in a maze. The Republican forces were cleaning up what they considered the burdens of the past, and guess who was first on the purge list? That's right, the priests. Escriva was no longer the priest preaching about holiness amidst comfortable offices. He was a fugitive. To survive, he had to hide, change his appearance, and conceal his identity. And finally, he executed one of the most dramatic jailbreaks in the organization's history, crossing the treacherous Pyrenees Mountains to reach France. Try to imagine it. Snow-capped mountain peaks, bone-chilling cold, and behind him, gun barrels hot on his trail. This was the dark night of the soul people often talk about, but in the literal sense. But the interesting part doesn't lie in how he escaped death. The interesting part is when he returned in 1939. He returned to a country that had been reshaped under the iron fist of Francisco Franco. And from here, a highly questionable love triangle began. Opus Dei, the Catholic Church, and the Franco dictatorship. There has been much controversy over whether Opus Dei helped Franco or Franco exploited Opus Dei. The truth? Probably both. After the Civil War, Spain needed rebuilding. The country was devastated, the economy exhausted, and the administrative apparatus broken down. Who were the people educated enough, disciplined enough, and devoted enough to fill those vacant positions? The members of Opus Dei. They were lawyers, economists, academics. They did not wear religious habits. They wore pinstripe suits, shiny leather shoes, and sat in government ministries. They brought the discipline of Opus Dei into the machinery of the state. And the result? A terrifying stability. But what was the price of that stability? It was that Opus Dei became tightly bound to the dictatorship. People called it technocracy. They didn't need to propagate religion through loudspeakers. They just needed to run the country so efficiently that people couldn't reject them. Critics began calling them the Crusaders of the 20th century. They were accused of using political influence to cover for each other, to snatch lucrative contracts, and most importantly, to impose a rigid ideology on Spanish society. And who was at the center of that power network? Josemaría Escrivá. From a priest living in cramped apartments, he became an, albeit unofficial, advisor to the supreme powers. But Escrivá always maintained the demeanor of an outsider to the game. He always said, "We are just people who work. We are just people who work," a line dripping with sarcasm. When you hold the most vital positions in the government, when you control the cash flow, when you have the decisive voice in national policies, that is no longer working. That is running an empire. The irony here is, Escriva wanted to bring God into daily life, but somehow he brought secular power into religious thought. His members began to believe that their success in politics was precisely God's will. So, where does the boundary between a religious organization and a political party lie? Escriva never answered that question. He just kept silent, building and expanding. In the shadows of post-war Spain, Opus Dei quietly became a force that no one could underestimate and no one could touch. They became a state within a state. And that, my friends, was just the beginning of the real power game. Are you ready to see what happens when this empire extends its tentacles globally and the price that members have to pay for this holiness? You cannot keep a revolutionary secret within the borders of a single nation, especially when that secret has the potential to yield returns in both power and money. From Spain, the Opus Dei machine began extending its tentacles globally. Within 60 years, this organization was present in more than 80 countries, more than 90,000 members. And the wealth? We are talking about billions of dollars, prestigious universities, lavish dormitories, closed conference centers, and investment funds that never publicly disclose their financial reports. But money and member numbers have never been Opus Dei's most terrifying weapon. Their ultimate weapon was legal, a privilege that no power in the more than 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church had ever laid hands on. In 1982, the Vatican granted Opus Dei the status of a personal prelature. If you don't understand this canon law term, let me translate it into everyday language. The ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. In the Catholic system, power is divided by territory. A priest or an organization in a city must obey the bishop of that city, but not Opus Dei. By this statute, they severed all ties with local bishops worldwide. Whether they operate in New York, Paris, or Manila, they are only directly accountable to one single person, the Pope, a direct hotline straight to the supreme being on earth. No one is allowed to interfere. No one has the right to audit. An independent kingdom without borders, coexisting yet completely invisible inside the heart of the Church. Do you notice the ultimate contradiction here? Escriva declared his organization lives in the heart of the world. But structurally, they built a legal fortress so that no one in the world could judge them. When you possess absolute power and are free from supervision, darkness begins to breed. To the outside world, Opus Dei means successful individuals, intellectuals in suits, and friendly smiles. But behind the closed doors of Opus Dei centers, where the core members, those who live celibate lives and dedicate all their assets and salaries to the organization, reside, a different picture emerges. A succession of former members have defected and spoken out. What they describe is not a path of spiritual practice, but a suffocating, psychological incubator. People accuse Opus Dei of being a cult, a sophisticated brainwashing machine. You are censored from the books you read, the movies you watch, down to the people you are allowed to talk to. Personal mail is opened. Confession sessions are not just places to cleanse the soul, but turn into an intelligence gathering system regarding each individual's psychological weaknesses. Discipline, the very thing Escriva once used to survive the Spanish Civil War, is now warped into a form of systematic psychological pressure. People are drained of their strength, cut off from their families, and programmed to believe that any doubt toward the organization is a betrayal of God. The mental trauma it leaves behind is as deep and brutal as any physical punishment. And what is Opus Dei's response to these shocking accusations? Tearful press conferences? Public apologies? No, absolutely not. They respond with a deafening silence, or with polite but razor-sharp denials. They refuse to explain. Why should an organization that believes it is doing the work of God bother to justify itself to prejudice secular folks? Their pride is so immense that they view criticism as mere dust clinging to the heels of their shoes. They know exactly what they hold, and they have no reason to compromise. Dan Brown made millions of dollars by painting Opus Dei as a ridiculous cult of hooded assassins. But he missed the true essence of the terror. The truth is far stranger and more fascinating than fiction. Opus Dei doesn't need assassins. They have bank directors, ministers, Supreme Court judges. Josemaría Escrivá, the young priest with ambitious eyes from years ago, succeeded in creating a system that turns the most mundane secular jobs into a machine to capture the most sacred power. He proved a grim truth. That suffering, worldly ambition, and religious faith, when molded by a genius mind and the ruthlessness of discipline, can create an invulnerable entity. Next, we will talk about the powers that walk in broad daylight, wearing smooth suits, holding crucifixes, and talking about economic growth figures. Have you ever wondered what happens when a dictatorship decides to climb into bed with a mysterious religious organization? Buckle up. I will take you back to Spain under the rule of General Francisco Franco. Spain at that time was not just a country, it was a mono-religious state. Franco, our great general, painted himself as a modern-day crusader, a hero who single-handedly saved Spain from the clutches of atheistic communism, wielding the sword of power to rule the country with strict Catholic teachings. And in return, the Church didn't just applaud, they provided the Franco regime with the ultimate weapon, legitimacy, and a moral foundation. You see, when priests run the schools and Catholic dogma becomes the gold standard shaping the laws, then opposing the government also means opposing God. A perfect symbiosis, a tight handshake, mutually beneficial, leaving behind complex legacies that Spain is still struggling to digest to this day. And right at the epicenter of this political-religious marriage, Opus Dei enters the arena. Now, if you ask Opus Dei if they were Franco's religious right hand, they will jump back in protest. Escriva himself, their founder, always maintained a perfect distance, a brilliant calculation, from political factions. He insists, no. Opus Dei has no political stance. Our members are completely free to support anyone they want. How naive and pure. But what about reality? The reality is that in the 1950s and 1960s, members of Opus Dei happened to, yes, just by coincidence, mind you, sit comfortably in the positions of the most terrifying power within Franco's government. Look at Spain in 1957. All of Western Europe was immersing itself in the glorious reconstruction after World War II. They grew rich, they prospered. And Franco's Spain? It was like a shipwreck stranded on dry land. Stagnant, isolated, starving and poor. Autarkic policies, self-sufficiency, and the suppression of foreign investment had strangled the economy. Franco was backed into a corner. He had to make a life-or-death choice, either continue to tightly cling to an arch-conservative economic nationalism and sink with the country, or throw the doors wide open to embrace the global economy and rational technocracy. He chose to live. He chose to open up. And guess who Franco handed the golden key to execute this major surgery? In February 1957, a silent landing took place. Alberto Ullastres became the Minister of Commerce. Mariano Navarro Rubio took the seat of Minister of Finance. Laureano Lopez Rodo became the brain of the planning apparatus. They were not exactly the same. One was an official member, another a collaborator of Opus Dei, but they all shared the same ideological DNA: Catholic technocratic rationalism. Sounds macroscopic, right? Let me translate it into human language for you to easily understand. These people believe that managing the economy scientifically, making money, and optimizing profits did not contradict Catholic faith at all. On the contrary, it was a way to serve God, serving God through excellent management of the material world. Brilliant. When religion and money find a common language, what happens? They created the Stabilization Plan of 1959. They tore up the rotten self-sufficiency policies, threw the doors wide open for foreign investment dollars to pour in, devalued the currency, and slashed deficits. The result? Spain plunged into a crazy growth trajectory that, by the mid-1960s, made it one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. History calls it the Spanish Miracle. For the first time, the name Opus Dei was publicly linked to a monumental achievement that even Franco's fiercest detractors had to grit their teeth and acknowledge. Opus Dei suddenly radiated the aura of brilliant, cold, precise, and efficient technocratic managers. This stamp of quality assurance turned their members into prime targets for governments and corporations across the globe for many decades to follow. But every miracle comes with a price and uncomfortable questions. Was Opus Dei truly just a religious group that accidentally trained economic geniuses, or was the perfect infiltration into Spain's supreme power apparatus the ultimate goal from the very beginning? Was spiritual training merely a perfect filter, a recruitment and military-style discipline mechanism under a religious guise? Escriva spent his entire life refuting that. He said, "We provide spiritual training. What they do out in society is their business. We do not pull the strings." That is the surface of the iceberg. But to know whether this organization truly does not pull the strings, we must take a flashlight and step deep inside their structure, where ordinary men and women live lives that are not ordinary at all. Forget about monks in frayed brown robes, living as recluses in damp stone monasteries on mountain peaks. That is a medieval story. If you want to seize power in the modern world, you cannot hide in the forest. You must sit at the negotiating table. Former members of Opus Dei, those who escaped and survived to tell the tale, often paint a much more horrifying picture than the cult's slick propaganda. To understand why they terrify people so much, you cannot just look at the financial reports. You must dissect its internal structure. A structure so sophisticated, cold, and perfect that it is terrifying. Welcome to the class hierarchy system of Opus Dei. This great bottom tier, making up the vast majority of the ranks, is called the supernumeraries. Who are they? They are your neighbor mowing the lawn on Sunday morning. They are the surgeon who just saved your mother's life. They are the lawyer handling your home mortgage contract. They are ordinary people with husbands, wives, screaming children, begging for food, and bank loans hanging over their heads. They live a perfect secular life, blending into the crowd without leaving a trace. But when the front door closes, another life begins. The invisible chain binding them to Opus Dei is not an employment contract, but something beautifully called the plan of life. Sounds like a cheap self-help book sold at a bookstore, right? Oh no, my friend. Escriva's plan of life is not a gentle suggestion like, meditate for 5 minutes a day for peace of mind. It is a steel framework shaping every single second of your day. It is military discipline wrapped in religious velvet. Imagine you are a supernumerary. You work an exhausting professional job while raising 3 children. Are you tired enough yet? Not quite. Because the plan of life requires you to, each morning, attend Mass if possible, plus half an hour of mental prayer. At noon, pause work to recite a short prayer. During the day, pray the entire rosary. Read assigned spiritual books in small portions. Before closing your eyes to sleep, conduct a brief examination of conscience to see what sins you committed today. And And every week, go to an Opus Dei center for spiritual direction and confess to a priest. Naturally, he must be an Opus Dei priest. To pack all of that into a 24-hour day of a busy person, you cannot just find a little extra time. You have to tear down and restructure your entire schedule, attention, and energy. You no longer own your time. Opus Dei owns it. But Escriva, a master of psychological manipulation, did not call it exploitation. He called that restructuring sanctification. According to Escriva's theology, when you cram that insane intensity of prayer into the middle of paperwork files and stressful meetings, you are turning your secular work into something supernatural. You are no longer working for money. You are working for God. But here is the question that has caused former members to divide and curse at each other for decades. Is this plan of life ultimately a spiritual gift that helps them elevate, or a dictatorial demand that drains them dry? When you live in a community that always uses invisible pressure to monitor whether you prayed enough of the rosary today, where does the boundary between so-called voluntary and compulsory lie? The supernumeraries are the perfect public face of Opus Dei. They hold power, knowledge, and wealth. But if you knew they were members of this organization, you would immediately raise an eyebrow in suspicion. Therefore, they choose to remain invisible. They rarely, if ever, publicly disclose their membership. Critics call this silence the secrecy of a dark cult. Opus Dei responds with a half smile, using a more elegant word, privacy. They say, "Oh, please, religion is a personal matter. Why show off?" This war of words is not just a semantic game. It is the perfect cover for a powerful army to manipulate social machinery without anyone knowing. But if the supernumeraries are just the external camouflage cloak, where does the true heart of this monster lie? Who is running this machine from the shadows, sacrificing their entire life, quite literally, for Opus Dei? You think you know what devotion is? You think working overtime until 9 p.m., eating instant noodles, and handing over half your salary to your landlord is the extreme exploitation of capitalism? Oh, you are so naive. Let me introduce you to the heart, or rather, the fiery engine that maintains the giant machine called Opus Dei. Welcome to the world of the numeraries, core members. If the supernumeraries are the invisible ambassadors of Opus Dei, the numeraries are absolute obedience machines. Who are they? They are not priests. They do not wear religious habits. Every morning, they still carry their briefcases to financial corporations, hospitals, and universities, doing professional jobs with enormous salaries out in society. But here is the most spectacular trick. At the end of the month, when they receive that hefty paycheck, what do? Buy cars? Invest in stocks? No. They hand over everything. Yes, you heard that right. Most or all of their income to Opus Dei. In return, this great organization generously grants them a bed in communal living centers, feeds them, and gives them a bit of pocket money. They live celibate lives. Absolutely no love, no family, no personal property. They live with an iron discipline and an orderliness that would make even the ascetic monasteries of the Middle Ages tip their hats in defeat. And remember that plan of life I mentioned in the previous section? That exhausting schedule of the associate members? For the numeraries, its intensity is cranked up to max volume. Not only that, they hold the power of life and death internally, administering the centers and arrogantly acting as spiritual guides for the supernumeraries. They are the central nervous system of the organization. But if that were all, then this would just be a group of workaholics and fanatics who like living together. There would be nothing worth talking about until we touch the real darkness, touching the flesh and touching the blood. It is time for us to talk about what made Opus Dei a nightmare in popular culture: corporal mortification. Opus Dei did not invent this violent game. Let's be fair to them. Catholic history has long held the concept of redemptive suffering. The idea here is, if you voluntarily torment your own body, that pain can be offered up to God as a prayer, so that you can share in the pain that Christ suffered on the cross. Sounds quite poetically theological, right? He did not like writing poetry. He liked specific instructions, precise like a blueprint, and the numeraries were expected to comply with that. Rule number 1: one night a week, you will not sleep on a mattress. You will sleep on a hard board or throw yourself onto the cold floor. Rule number 2: every day, for 2 hours, you must wear a cilice. Don't let the name fool you. It is not a shirt. It is a chain with sharp metal spikes, tightly wrapped around your upper thigh, piercing the flesh beneath your neatly pressed trousers while you are sitting in a board meeting or drinking coffee with a partner. Rule number 3: the discipline. Don't confuse it with scheduling discipline. This is a noun referring to the act of whipping yourself. Once a week, in a locked room, you flog your own back. What does Opus Dei say about these horrifying practices? Oh, they have an excellent PR team. They publicly acknowledge them with the calmest smile in the world. They say, "Come on, folks, don't overdo it. It's all voluntary." The spikes of the cilice only cause mild discomfort, like a scratch. It is not intended as punishment, but to train the will so the soul can transcend material pleasure. They claim it is no different from athletes pushing their bodies in the gym, except this is a gym for the soul. A massive number of former numeraries have successfully defected, and they tell a completely different story. Mild discomfort? They talk about the terrifying social pressure weighing on their shoulders, forcing them to torture themselves. Even when their bodies have reached the limit of endurance, they speak of a toxic culture of silence, where complaining about physical pain is seen as a weakness of faith. The cilice is not a minor inconvenience. Many former members had to seek medical intervention for deep infected wounds, caused by wearing the spiked chain incorrectly or for too long. And most hauntingly, a former numerary wrote in their memoir about the horrific truth of self-flagellation. Waking up every morning and seeing your own fresh blood scattered on the bedsheets from the previous night's beating was considered normal. Yes, a completely expected, encouraged, and desired outcome. Who can you believe? The organization with its smooth, defensive declarations, or the people carrying scars that will never heal? So, we have seen the scars. We have heard the muffled screams of the defectors. Do you think that with such clear evidence of physical torture and psychological manipulation, Opus Dei would collapse under the hammer of public opinion? Don't underestimate the minds that once revived the entire Spanish economy. When backed into a corner, Opus Dei launched a PR counterattack so brilliant that you almost have to applaud. Do you know what they say? They point to a fact with cold statistics. Listen, the vast majority of former numeraries do not report any abuse upon leaving. That is the classic argument of power, using the silent majority to crush isolated voices. They continue to emphasize all our corporal mortifications are regulated to an extremely moderate degree and are closely supervised. As if wrapping a spiked chain around your thigh were a medical procedure with ISO quality certification. And then they play their final trump card, a theological scale whataboutism. They point at other traditional Catholic religious orders and say, "Why look at us with those panicked eyes? How are these practices any different from what monks and nuns have voluntarily done for centuries?" They are right. Historically, they are absolutely right. Redemptive suffering is a core piece of Catholic theology. But this is precisely where the crack in Opus Dei's sophistry reveals itself. The difference, my friends, lies in context and power. When a secluded monk in a cloistered monastery flagellates himself, it's between him, the stone walls, and his God. He has renounced the world. But Opus Dei, they don't renounce the world. They dominate the world. Let's go back to the men of 1957. Alberto Ullastres, Mariano Navarro Rubio, Laureano López Rodó, the technocrats who brought about the Spanish miracle. They were not fanatics holed up in caves. They were top-tier minds, the people calculating GDP, coordinating foreign investment flows, shaping laws, and manipulating an entire dictatorship. Do you recognize the fascinating horror of this paradox? The people who by day wear Armani suits, signing billion-dollar contracts, analyzing macro indicators with the ice-cold head of rationalism, are the very same people who by night kneel on the cold floor, whipping their own backs until they bleed to offer it up to God. That is not just a religion. That is the ultimate fusion of absolute secular power and absolute spiritual fanaticism. And the biggest question, the most painful question from Franco's time until today, still hangs there without ever receiving a real answer. Is Opus Dei truly a noble religious organization that happens to produce economic geniuses? Or is that fierce spiritual training apparatus, that suffocating plan of life, actually a perfect brainwashing machine? A mechanism for recruitment, discipline, and molding invisible super warriors who never betray, to infiltrate the economic and political lifelines of the globe? Escriva took his answer to the grave, repeatedly projecting a perfect facade. We only provide spiritual training. What they do out in society is a personal matter. The debate surrounding Opus Dei, the highly powerful and mysterious Catholic organization, has never been an easy puzzle to solve. The core question here does not lie in surface-level dogmas or vows of celibacy. No, it lies on a terrifyingly thin line. Is a practice of faith quietly turning into psychological abuse? The answer, my friends, depends entirely on context. It depends on the massive, invisible pressure of the microcosm surrounding that individual. And most importantly, do people truly feel they have the right to stop? Let's talk about the numeraries, the official members, the core warriors of Opus Dei. Opus Dei does not ask you to shave your head, wear disheveled habits, or flee to some remote mountain. They ask for something far more expensive, the commitment to reshape the entire structure of your life. Imagine you are a numerary. Where you live? An Opus Dei center. Your social universe begins and ends at the very doors of this center. Your mind, guided by a spiritual director, obviously a priest belonging to Opus Dei. Your career, your professional work, in countless cases, is subtly steered to serve affiliated organizations or places where Opus Dei has interests. Even your tiny bit of free time, the book you read before bed, The friend you plan to have coffee with on the weekend, the way you spend a few rare hours of rest, all must bow to the guidance of the spiritual priest. Former numerary members call this a closed world. But let me make this very clear. It is not closure by violence. There are no threatening screams. There are no bloody beatings. It is the closure of an intelligent totalitarian institution. They lock you up by gradually, extremely slowly, replacing your entire frame of reference for the outside world with their own. They create a social price too expensive to pay for any non-compliance. Punishment does not lie in the physical body. It lies in disappointed glances, in subtle isolation, in guilt hammered to the absolute bone. And then, what happens when a bird realizes it is in a cage and wants to spread its wings? Many former members have stepped into the public spotlight and confessed a chilling truth. Leaving Opus Dei was one of the most devastating psychological traumas of their lives. Why? Is it because the organization's black-suited bodyguards block the door? Not at all. They collapse because when they step across that threshold to return to the free world, they suddenly realize they no longer know who they are. Their original self, the true person they were before joining the organization, was washed away, molded and shattered through years of high-intensity training. That old self has become an alien ghost that they themselves can no longer reach. You can walk out the door, but how do you escape when the cage has been implanted directly into your mind? Of course, if you throw these accusations in Opus Dei's face, they will scoff. They will point to the hundreds of thousands of people who left the organization, especially the supernumeraries, the associate members who have families and a more flexible secular life, and boldly declare, "Look, Zorro!" They left without losing a single hair. The experience of a few disgruntled numeraries cannot represent us. The ironic truth is that both are right. The experience of a supernumerary just scratching the surface and a numerary selling their soul to the organization is like comparing a tourist visiting Alcatraz prison to a prisoner serving a life sentence there. It is not the same reality. As someone who is always skeptical, I must pause here to confess one thing to you. The uncertainty is real. The accounts of trauma within Opus Dei are largely not stories of brutal physical abuse. It is the story of a sophisticated process, a process where an organization thoroughly devours an individual to the point where that individual only realizes they have been assimilated when they try to tear the organization out of their own flesh and blood. That is an extremely serious issue. But to be fair, these brainwashing effects also appear in environments that are not labeled cults at all. Rigorous military academies, ascetic religious communities, or even the toxic work culture on Wall Street. Has Opus Dei truly crossed the sinful boundary where other institutions stop? Anyone sitting here, smiling and confidently judging yes or no without ever having lived the life of a devoted follower or tasted the pain of a defector, then my friends, that person is lying. But if the inner world of Opus Dei is a blurry psychological picture, their octopus tentacles reaching into the real world are something completely different, something tangible, colossal, and deeply calculated. Let's set aside that blurry psychological mess. Psychology can be subjective, distorted by perspectives, resentment, or blind loyalty. But bricks and stones, real estate contracts, towering buildings, and archived document files do not lie. If Opus Dei's inner structure is a dark maze that defies all decoding efforts, then its external structure, Their level of influence in the real world is as clear as a straight punch to our face. It does not require you to interpret or speculate. You just need eyes to see. And the record of this expansion, my friends, is massive enough to make any multinational corporation green with envy. Spain, Peru, Colombia, the Philippines, Kenya, dozens of other countries, Europe, North America, Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Opus Dei does not just build churches to pray. Oh no, that is last century's thinking. They operate a massive global education network. They own prestigious universities. They run everything from high schools and elementary schools to vocational training centers. They capture and manage luxury university dormitories, bustling student centers, and core academic programs in the largest student cities on the planet. Do you think all of this was set up purely out of compassion to dispense literacy to poor orphan children? Wake up. This network is by no means small, and it was absolutely not designed for the masses. It was created with a cold calculation and a razor-sharp goal. The founder of the organization, Josemaría Escrivá, was never an idealistic dreamer. From the very first days of laying the foundation for Opus Dei, he declared very clearly, straightforward to a chilling degree, Opus Dei's training goal is not the general masses. They do not aim at the pawns on the chessboard. They aim at the rooks, the knights, the bishops, and especially the queens. They target the leaders. What is the logic here? Simple, perfect, and ruthless. Why waste effort going door to door, distributing flyers, standing in the middle of a square, screaming to convince millions of ordinary people to believe in your ideal? That is both expensive and inefficient. Instead, go to those sitting at the very peak of the pyramid. You reach out your hand and mold the minds of those who will work within government machineries, those who wear the robes of judges, intellectuals in academia, secretive financial tycoons on Wall Street, and the thinkers who shape popular culture. You train the decision makers, and when you control the brains of those who hold the pen to sign off on laws, manipulate the flow of money, and write the history pages of the era, congratulations, you have indirectly steered an entire world without having to sweat a single drop on the streets. More efficient than any noisy mass missionary campaign that has ever existed in history. This, my friends, is the core principle of elite training. The sophistication of Opus Dei lies in the fact that they do not carry this out stealthily like a sleazy secret society. They do it in a grand manner through academic credentials, through prestigious campuses, through professional excellence. They have pursued this goal of intellectual rule with incredible steadfastness, persistence, and sophistication. I can affirm that no other Catholic lay organization on this planet can match their scale and sharpness. They have turned the process of spiritual training into a metallurgical furnace where raw ore is forged into the sharpest swords ready to be driven into the jugular positions of nations. But once you have created those swords, who will hold the hilt? And which names have actually stepped out of this elite furnace to sit in the most powerful seats of the world's superpowers? Hold on to your seats, because the names I am about to read out here will make you look at the entire landscape of global politics through a completely different lens. How do you know who is truly holding power? You can go on Google and search for the employee list of a corporation or the cabinet of a government. But with Opus Dei, don't bother. Their official directory is a ghost. It does not exist before the public eye. You can only trace the tracks they leave on the snow of history. And when you begin to piece together the fragments from public information, the picture that emerges might make you shiver. Look at Spain, their home turf. Throughout the decades since the era of the Spanish miracle, members of Opus Dei have sat comfortably in ministerial seats. And the most interesting part? They are present in both left-wing and right-wing governments, even though they clearly lean much more towards the right. Do you see the ingenuity here? No matter which side the political chessboard flips, they always hold the chess pieces in key defensive positions. But let's cross the ocean to the United States of America, the fertile ground where Opus Dei has taken root and extended its massive branches since the 1940s. Who are their people here? They are not missionaries holding megaphones, shouting on the streets. They are federal judges. They are high-ranking officials in the intelligence community. They are elite scholars and prominent politicians. If you follow American politics, there are two names like two thunderclouds always waiting to pour down on debates about Opus Dei: Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas, two conservative Supreme Court justices of the United States Supreme Court. For years, left-wing and liberal commentators have driven themselves nearly insane. They look at how the ironclad legal philosophy of these two judges perfectly intertwines with devout Catholic faith, and they began to draw up conspiracy theories about an invisible hand of Opus Dei pulling the strings of the American judicial system. But, my friends, the truth is always more complex and ironic than cheap detective novels. According to the best records we can verify, the late Justice Scalia was not a member of Opus Dei. He only had friends in the organization and occasionally dropped by a few events. Clarence Thomas is exactly the same. Neither of them is a devoted numerary or even a part-time supernumerary. Not on the list. The accusation seems to have collapsed, right? But this is precisely when the art of manipulation reaches its peak. For Opus Dei, you don't need to be an official member to be in their network. They maintain a much larger circle, people known as cooperators, or those who pump in money, provide practical support, or simply intellectuals deeply influenced by the organization's ideology without any canon law binding. It's just like gravity. You don't need to live on the sun to be scorched by its heat. But if those judges were just the tip of an academic debate, there is a name that dealt a fatal blow to the glamorous image of Opus Dei, a name that echoes in the American intelligence community like a bloody tumor: Robert Hanssen. In 2001, America was shocked when the FBI arrested one of their own highest-ranking counterintelligence officers. Robert Hanssen had sold out his country to the Soviet Union and later Russia for over 2 decades. He handed over lists of American undercover spies to the KGB, leading to the deaths of countless people. One of the most devastatingly damaging espionage cases in the history of human intelligence. And guess what? Robert Hanssen was a member of Opus Dei, not a passerby. He attended Mass at an Opus Dei church right in the heart of Washington. He had a deep and wide circle of friends in the organization. Let's pause and savor this ultimate irony for a moment. How can you reconcile the image of an organization claiming to be a gathering of the most morally dedicated, spiritually rigorously trained professionals with someone who's ready to kiss the crucifix in the morning and sell out his comrades' lives to the most dangerous enemy in the afternoon? The storm raged, and of course, Opus Dei's media machine fired back. Their argument was sharp and, to be fair, completely logical. Look, we have 90,000 people. How can you keep 90,000 apples from having even a single rotten one? No institution can be put on trial for the secret crimes of an individual. Hanssen betrayed America, and he also betrayed every value that Opus Dei stands for. Extremely satisfactory, I cannot counter it. But this incident inadvertently exposed another truth, a hidden corner where perhaps this organization never wants light to shine. Think about it. Institutions that require high devotion, possess a closed internal culture, emphasize secrecy, and have the ability to deliberately compartmentalize information are, in essence, the most perfect caves. They are excellent ecosystems for those harboring a second life, those carrying out shady behaviors to safely hide without being questioned. That is not an accusation, my friends. It is merely a quiet observation of the nature of darkness. Wherever light only shines along a predetermined straight line, the hidden corners will become all the darker. And if Opus Dei possesses such a formidable power structure, then how could an organization with such strange traits, half secular, half religious, wedge its way into the oldest and most rigid legal system in the world, the Roman Catholic Church? Who handed them that sword of supreme power? Let's step into the oldest and most powerful maze in the world, the Vatican. If you want to rule the capitalist world, you manipulate the flow of money. If you want to rule the political world, you control the ballots. But if you want your existence to be legitimized by divine power, you must defeat the bureaucracy of the Roman Catholic Church. And believe me, that is a war not meant for the faint of heart. The relationship between the Vatican and Opus Dei is precisely the source of one of the most intense, smoldering doctrinal civil wars of the 20th century. The founder, Josemaría Escrivá, spent decades of his life knocking on the heavy oak doors of Rome. He brought them a completely fresh theological premise, something that at first sounded incredibly wonderful: sanctifying the ordinary work of lay people in the world. You don't need to enter religious life to become a saint. You can be an accountant, a lawyer, a surgeon, and you can serve God right at your desk. Wonderful, isn't it? So progressive, so inspiring. But there was a problem that made canon law experts and veteran theologians of the Vatican scratch their heads to the point of wanting to tear up ancient book pages. That is, Catholic canon law didn't have any box to stuff Opus Dei into. They were a genetic mutation in an ecosystem that had existed for 2,000 years. You say they are a religious order? Not at all. Their members do not shave their heads, do not wear black cassocks, do not take religious vows, and certainly do not live separated behind monastery walls. They wear Armani suits, wear shiny leather shoes, and dine at luxurious restaurants. Then are they merely a lay association like a nightly order or weekend prayer groups? Even more wrong, Opus Dei has its own distinct body of priests. Furthermore, their level of iron discipline and internal governance system goes far beyond, reaching a level that could make any ordinary lay association tremble. They are a hybrid creature, something truly new. And in the Vatican, new usually means dangerous. The first official approval finally arrived in 1950. Under the reign of Pope Pius XII, the Vatican nodded and tossed Opus Dei a designation, Secular Institute, tu hoi joy. This label acknowledged their lay nature, granting them an official status within the Church. Many people would open champagne to celebrate, but Escriva did not. Do you think someone with a world-shaping vision like him would be satisfied with a compromised designation? Escriva hated the Secular Institute label to his very bones. Why? Because it distorted the essence of what he was building. The word institute carried with it a lingering taste of vows, of disguised religious. Meanwhile, the core premise of Opus Dei was that members did not make any official consecration in the style of a religious order. They had to be ordinary people living an ordinary life, but bound by a unique spiritual commitment, invisible but tougher than steel. He did not want his people to be viewed as hidden monks. He wanted them to be secular rulers with a holy soul. And so, Escriva spent the last 2 decades of his life relentlessly and tirelessly lobbying, weaving through the corridors of power in Rome to demand a distinct canonical status, a status born solely for his beloved child. But time is a ruthless thing. It spares no one. Escriva drew his last breath in 1975, carrying his dream of a supreme privilege to the grave. But perfect machines do not stop when their creator dies. His successor, Álvaro del Portillo, continued to carry the torch. And fortunately for Opus Dei, the stars in the Vatican sky finally aligned. The reign of Pope John Paul II began. On November 28, 1982, the history of the Church witnessed a shockwave. Pope John Paul II issued the Apostolic Constitution named Ut Sit. With just a stroke of a pen, His Holiness lifted Opus Dei up, going beyond every legal framework that had ever existed, and established them as a personal prelature, Giam Hat Tong Nahan. Supporters wiped away tears, calling it the proper recognition of their true nature. But critics, the opposing Catholic scholars, looked at this decree with absolute horror. To them, this was the moment the Vatican handed Opus Dei a level of institutional autonomy unprecedented in the 2,000-year history of the Church, a spine-chilling independence. Let me explain to you why the concept of a personal prelature is so terrifying. Territorial power. In the Catholic Church, power is usually divided by territory. A bishop has absolute power, but that power is limited by the geographical borders of his diocese. Step past that boundary, and he loses authority. Personal power. A personal prelature is based on persons. This structure has its own head, the prelate, and this prelate has jurisdictional authority over all clergy and faithful belonging to Opus Dei, regardless of where they live in the world. Do you understand its meaning? It means that Opus Dei has become a diocese without borders, an invisible empire stretching across every country, every continent, piercing through every geographical barrier. A numerary living in New York, working in Tokyo, or vacationing in Paris does not have to bow to local bishops. They only obey a single power system directly from their own head. A miniature state, suspended, invisible, out of reach of ordinary control mechanisms. It was not just a religious victory, it was a masterpiece of power-building engineering. So, in the end, what is Opus Dei? Is it a path of holiness bringing ordinary people to God, or a giant brainwashing machine wrapped in velvet? Are they humble servants, or an invisible empire pulling the strings of the power dolls of this world? Imagine this. You are a boss. You rule a vast territory. Every corner, every alley, every organization in that area must bow and ask your permission before daring to make a peep. You are the law. In the Catholic world, that boss is called a bishop, and his territory is a diocese. But then one day a crowd of people in black suits appears, right in the middle of your turf. They open a headquarters, they recruit people, they operate robustly. You angrily slam the table. Who allowed you to cause a ruckus here? And they just smile, pull out a piece of paper stamped by the supreme boss, the Pope, and gently reply, "We don't work for you. We have our own direct line." That, my friends, is exactly Opus Dei. You and I, let's dissect the concept of a personal prelature, an administrative weapon with extremely high lethality. In the Church, power is usually divided geographically. You are in New York. You fall under the authority of the Bishop of New York. You are in Paris. The Bishop of Paris is your boss. But Opus Dei holds in its hands a space-bending superpower, authority over the individual, regardless of which continent's air they are breathing. The practical consequence of this? It is not just large, it is a seismic shift. The priests and members of Opus Dei are completely invisible to the power radar of local bishops. They are only subject to the governance of the Opus Dei prelati, sitting comfortably back in Rome, and through that figure report directly to the Pope. In essence, Opus Dei is a church within a church. They have their own administrative apparatus, their own clergy, a closed ecosystem, a cold institutional logic, and a direct hotline to the Vatican bypassing the entire conventional diocesan bureaucracy. Do you see the irony here? In practical Catholic life, the bishop is the center of the local universe. Other religious orders have to struggle to ask for a license to open a monastery. Lay organizations have to grovel waiting for recognition. But Opus Dei? No, not at all. They can open a massive center right in the middle of a diocese without the local bishop even knowing. An Opus Dei priest can perform pastoral duties for their people without needing a nod from the bishop. The powerful bishop cannot point fingers to tell Opus Dei what to do. And Opus Dei, with a half smile, has absolutely no canonical obligation to report to him what they are hiding up their sleeves. Naturally, this creates powder kegs. For many years, in countless countries, local bishops have driven themselves mad. They complain about organizations operating underground, right under their noses, lacking transparency. They get furious when Opus Dei recruits lay people, snatches elite brains and thick wallets without bothering to drop a single word to parish priests. They call it a separatist mentality, a type of internal cultishness where Opus Dei members only bury their faces in their own organization instead of integrating into the broader church community. And do you know how Opus Dei responds to those accusations full of sweat and tears? They calmly hold up the Code of Canon Law and say, "We report directly to Rome," an absolutely technically accurate answer, but a ruthless slash, cutting off all diplomatic efforts with local bishops. But if you think the conflict between Opus Dei and the bishops is already the peak of the drama, you are mistaken. The real war, the clash of ideologies that shook the foundations of 20th century Catholicism, is the deep vendetta between Opus Dei and the Society of Jesus, or as we familiarly call them, the Jesuits. This is not a squabble between neighboring old ladies. This is the collision of two grand visions, fiercely competing over what role Catholicism should play in a world that is shattering and being reborn. Look at the Jesuits. Founded by St. Ignatius of Loyola in the 16th century, they are elite intellectuals, people ready to roll up their sleeves and step down into the mud of the modern world. They engage in dialogue with secular thought, with science. In the 20th century, they were deeply bound to political theology, standing on the side of the poor, social justice movements, and in Latin America, They fanned the flames of liberation theology. After the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, the Jesuits opened their arms wide to the modern world. Critics called it a cowardly compromise, while the Jesuits called it authentic dialogue. And while the Jesuits were busy flinging open the windows of the church to welcome fresh air, Josemaría Escrivá, the founder of Opus Dei, was rushing to slam them shut. Escriva looked at the changes of the Second Vatican Council with the utmost skepticism. Under his ruling hand, Opus Dei moved in a trajectory completely opposite to the Jesuits. They clung tightly to an ironclad traditional Catholic identity. Obedience to Rome was absolute. The liturgy had to be traditional, and they vehemently opposed every theological innovation that the Jesuits were preaching. Two organizations, two extremes, two magnetic poles repelling each other with an open force of hostility buzzing for decades. And then the referee appeared in the ring, Pope John Paul II. He had a deep affection for Opus Dei. He did something shocking, lifting Escriva up to the rank of sainthood in 2002. At the same time, he swung his hammer down on the Jesuits. The Pope proceeded to curb what he called the Jesuits' theological adventurism, binding them with harsh measures unseen since the 18th century. This was not just a coincidence. This was a transfer of power. The Vatican had chosen sides, and the scale of grace tilted heavily toward the mysterious ecosystem named Opus Dei. But like all power that rises too quickly in the shadows, blemishes and rumors began to bleed out from behind their high gated walls. To become a saint of the Catholic Church, you usually have to undergo a rigorous censorship process lasting centuries. Every corner of your life will be dug up, every miracle dissected under a microscope. But if you are Josemaría Escrivá, the founder of Opus Dei, the rules of the game seem a bit more flexible. Look at this timeline. Escrivá passed away in 1975. In 1992, he was beatified. In 2002, he was officially canonized. This speed in the world of the Vatican is no different from a Ferrari racing on a highway with no speed limit. It ranks among the most controversial, loudest, and most heavily orchestrated church events in modern Catholic history. Why? Because according to critics, this canonization process was brutally fast-forwarded. The investigation into the life of the great Lord Escriva was like a trial where the judge plugged his ears to all unfavorable testimony. Imagine you know a person well. You work with him. You witness his fits of rage. And when the Vatican opens an investigation to see if that person is worthy of sainthood, you raise your hand to speak. But what you get in return is a cold wave of a hand. Or worse, the door of the investigation room slams right in your face. A string of witnesses who personally knew Escriva, who carried less than beautiful anecdotes about his character, were completely ignored or barred from testifying. Former members of Opus Dei, those who escaped from this underground church, submitted spine-chilling testimonies. They did not describe a gentle saint with a halo over his head. They sketched a tyrannical man, violently temperamental, and ready to ruthlessly trample on anyone who dared to displease him. There were even written statements, things that are undeniable. In a 1941 letter, Escriva made remarks about Jewish people, calling himself the son of a rabbi as a bizarre metaphor for his relationship with tradition. along with a host of other prejudices recorded by his closest associates. Those are not the words of a saint. Those are the words of narrow-mindedness. But guess what the Vatican said? Oh, we investigated very thoroughly. The evidence of his heroic virtue is undeniable. Those complaints, they are merely from a few disgruntled individuals, jealous, who misunderstood his intentions. And boom. Today we have Saint Josemaría Escrivá. If you want to celebrate, mark June 26th on your calendar. That is his feast day. Now, let us talk about the only thing in this world that has power rivaling faith: money. Assessing Opus Dei's assets is like trying to measure the volume of water in the ocean with a leaky spoon. Why? Because they never publish comprehensive financial reports. The financial structure of this organization is a masterpiece of the art of disguise. Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket named Opus Dei, they smashed that basket, scattering assets into hundreds, thousands of independent legal entities, hiding under companies and trusts in countless countries. Any effort to sketch a panoramic picture ends in blindness. But from the rare cracks of truth, through leaked reports, life-for-life journalistic investigations, and the confessions of absconding former financial managers, we know one thing. Opus Dei is rich, stinking rich. They are one of the most financially formidable Catholic organizations on this planet. Let me explain how this money printing machine works. It revolves around a group of people called numeraries, the residential or core members. You think paying income tax is brutal? Listen to this. Numeraries living at Opus Dei centers usually voluntarily hand over the entirety. Yes, you didn't hear it wrong, 100% of their professional income to the organization. Now, place them in the world's largest financial centers: New York, London, Madrid, Rome, Chicago. You have top lawyers on Wall Street, surgeons in Boston, chief financial officers in London. Every month, these people in dapper suits carrying luxury leather briefcases earn tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And at the end of the month, they bring that entire sum of money, not keeping a single penny, and lay it on the table for Opus Dei. Can you visualize that colossal waterfall of revenue? That's not all. The centers themselves sit on some of the most expensive real estate blocks in the world. Their affiliated universities and schools are not just places of proselytization, they are independent corporations with massive fortunes. Look at the University of Navarra in Pamplona, Spain, the crown jewel of Opus Dei. It is not some village school. It has a prestigious medical school, a world-class business school, an international caliber law school. To feed such a massive academic monster requires a continuous, surging flow of financial lifeblood. And only a mother organization with deep, bottomless pockets could pump blood to keep it living so healthily. That is not to mention dozens of billionaires, private tycoons across the world who are not official members but still regularly transfer massive amounts of money into the organization's funds as a form of cooperators. They have religious power. They have unlimited money. But as people often say, when you have too much money and operate in the dark, you are bound to attract the most dangerous sharks. And in the 1980s, Opus Dei entered a bloody dance with the financial underworld, a dance that dragged in the mafia, secret societies, a corpse dangling under a bridge in London, and one of the most shocking bank collapses in European history. Travel back in time with me to the 1980s. We will leave behind the light-filled cathedrals to enter a world where faith was put up as collateral, where gangsters' blood-stained dollar bills were washed clean with holy water. Welcome to the Banco Ambrosiano scandal, one of the most shocking and foul-smelling bank collapses in modern European history. At the epicenter of this vortex was a man named Roberto Calvi. He was no low-level bank clerk sitting around counting spare change every day. He was the chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, a giant Italian bank with deep-rooted connections to the Vatican Bank. But Calvi's personal profile is what would make even Hollywood underworld movies bow in respect. Look at this man's network of relationships. With one hand, he held the Vatican Bank, managing the massive cash flow of the Holy See. With the other hand, he shook hands with the most brutal mafia syndicate in the world, the Sicilian Mafia. Not stopping there, Calvi also walked in the dark with the Italian Secret Service and was a core member of Propaganda Due, or P2, a shady Masonic lodge, a sort of underground state that rounded up the entirety of the Italian political and financial elite. Roberto Calvi was precisely the great venomous spider sitting comfortably right at the center of one of the most dangerous, darkest networks of European finance. But, as I often tell you, when you dance with the devil, don't expect the devil to pay your performance fee. London, under the gloomy Blackfriars Bridge. They found Roberto Calvi. He wasn't sitting enjoying afternoon tea. He was dangling from a rope, his neck tightly strangled, swaying in the cold wind along with bricks stuffed full in his suit pockets. Initially, the London police, with a laughably ridiculous naivety, concluded it was a case of suicide. Right, a billionaire banker goes to the trouble of flying thousands of kilometers to London, stuffs bricks into his own pockets, and hangs himself under a quiet bridge. How perfectly logical that sounds. Naturally, that verdict was quickly reclassified as a homicide. The investigation into who killed Calvi and why became a bloody game of hide-and-seek that occupied Italian courts for decades, and to this very day, not a single person has been convicted. But Calvi's death was only the kindling. The real bomb was the colossal debt he left behind when Banco Ambrosiano collapsed. Over $1 billion evaporated into thin air. Do you know what the worst part for the Vatican was at that time? An extremely significant portion of that $1 billion debt consisted of loans from, or guaranteed through, the Vatican Bank. Imagine the absolute panic behind the closed walls of the Holy See back then. The Vatican Bank's involvement in the Ambrosiano affair was not just a deep embarrassment, it was a devastating stain. It created a financial and legal crisis of international scale, threatening to topple the prestige of a 1,000-year-old religious dynasty. The Vatican was backed into a corner, facing subpoenas, billion-dollar lawsuits, and a media storm ready to tear them apart. They needed money. They needed a lot of money to cover up and clean up this repulsive wreckage. And right in their darkest hour, as the Vatican was flailing in the rushing rapids, a hand reached out. A hand wearing a soft velvet glove, but hiding within it the power of an entire invisible financial empire. The great figure who appeared to rescue the Holy See was none other than Monsignor Alvaro del Portillo, the head of Opus Dei, along with his organization. The exact nature of the financial transaction between Opus Dei and the Vatican in that life-or-death moment has never been recorded in any public file. Of course, no one issues an official tax invoice for a century-scale rescue mission. However, every investigator, every prominent journalist who had embedded themselves to closely monitor this affair arrived at the same bone-chilling conclusion. Opus Dei brought a colossal financial resource, an invaluable support that helped the Vatican escape the Ambrosiano peril. But my friend, there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world, especially at this level of power. Pay attention to this detail because it is the best part of the magic trick. Just exactly 2 months after the shocking collapse of Banco Ambrosiano was exposed to the light, Pope John Paul II officially granted Opus Dei an unprecedented favor in history: the status of a personal prelature, that transcendent administrative weapon that helps Opus Dei bypass all local bishops, the very power we talked about at the beginning. Some say it was a coincidence. Some say Opus Dei bailed out the Vatican and bought a permanent independent status for themselves. Whether that understanding is accurate or fair, whether there was an underground contract between a billion-dollar sum and a supreme privilege, neither the Vatican nor Opus Dei has ever and will ever directly answer that insolent question. They just remain silent. And me? I simply leave you with a classic quote from the investigative world: the timeline is what it is. When you line up the events next to each other, sometimes silence is the loudest scream. Now, with the label of personal prelature in hand and an invulnerable financial ecosystem, Opus Dei was ready to extend its tentacles out of the old continent of Europe. Their next destination? The place where the power and policies that shape the entire world are born. From the ancient streets of Rome to the underside of bridges in London now, let me take you across the Atlantic, setting foot in the place where power is measured not only by faith, but counted by statutes, verdicts, and nuclear bombs. America. Since the early 2000s, Opus Dei's influence in United States politics has become a lucrative prey for the press. People enjoy spinning sensational conspiracy theories, imagining assassins in monk robes lurking around the White House. But my friend, be careful. Seeing the ghost of Opus Dei pulling the strings behind every conservative policy in America is a form of intellectual laziness. It is like blaming the devil every time you drop a piece of bread. However, if you choose to close your eyes and completely deny the power of this organization, denying their deadly network effect, then you are the most naive person on the planet. The truth, as always, is much more sophisticated and elegant. Look at the recorded numbers. America has a population of about 330 million. How many members do you guess Opus Dei has here? Around 3,000 to 4,000 people. A pitifully small number, right? The ratio is 1 in 100,000, like a drop of water falling into the middle of the Nevada desert. But Opus Dei has never played the numbers game. They play the game of the elites. If you go looking for these members on Midwestern farms or in decaying industrial towns, you won't find anyone. They are not there. These 3,000 to 4,000 individuals are concentrated at a bizarrely disproportionate rate in the sectors that hold society by the throat: law, medicine, academia, government, and finance. And where do they take root? New York, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, and most brilliantly, in the highest concentration, Washington, D.C. In the capital city of Washington, Opus Dei operates a center. No noise, no flags or flowers. But over the years, it has been like a silent, giant magnet, drawing toward itself figures with the ability to steer the nation's destiny. You will see their people working deep within the federal government apparatus, prominent congressional staff, high-ranking officials of the executive branch, and especially the razor-sharp minds of the federal judiciary. The epicenter of this vortex is located right in the Washington commercial district, bearing a very innocent and common-sounding name: the Catholic Information Center. Sounds like a library where people go to read books about saints, right? Don't let that name fool you. Directly under the management of Opus Dei, this center for the past several decades has been the headquarters, the ultimate power meeting point of the conservative Catholic elite in the capital. Who has crossed that threshold? William Barr, the powerful Attorney General who served under not just one but two Republican presidencies, has stood at the Speaker's podium here. And it doesn't stop there. Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States, individuals clad in black robes with ultimate ruling power, deciding the constitution of the world's #1 superpower, have also appeared at this center. You see, in a city where every handshake, every dinner, every casual conversation can lead to the passage of $1 billion bill or the appointment of a judge holding the power of life and death for life, the magnetic pull of a center like this carries massive consequences. This is precisely what we need to understand clearly, so as not to fall into the trap of cheap Hollywood movies. The real picture that emerges is not that of an Opus Dei boss sitting in an underground command center, tapping on a keyboard, and ordering American lawmakers how to vote. No, real power is never that crude. It is the picture of an extremely sophisticated social and intellectual network, a web woven from dense mutual acquaintance. They share an elite educational background. They swear to common theological commitments. When the most powerful minds share a worldview and cohabit a space constructed by Opus Dei, it automatically shapes careers, shapes relationships, and ultimately shapes the policies governing America. They do not need to order anyone. They only need to create an environment where people with the same mindset are nurtured to rise and seize supreme power. And that, my friends, is the whole truth about the underground church named Opus Dei. From a canonical privilege that allows them to act freely out of the reach of local bishops to the fierce ideological war with the Jesuits. From a ruthlessly accelerated canonization process, an invisible financial empire submerged in darkness, the ghosts under London bridges, to the network of octopus tentacles manipulating the brain of the capital Washington. Let me paint you a picture. Look at this map. Their global influence at the beginning of the 21st century, though always cleverly hidden behind a shroud of fog of unofficial data, is still enough to make any power analyst shiver. They operate in more than 80 countries, around 90,000 members. Yes, you didn't hear wrong. 90,000 rigorously selected human beings. Where do they take root the deepest? Spain, where everything originated, where this organization drove its first institutional roots into the ground. Then to Latin America, a fertile land molded by their educational and pastoral activities over generations. They swept through Western Europe, erecting fortified bastions in Italy, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Ireland. It doesn't stop there. Their operations are extending tentacles, pastoral mission, all the way to sub-Saharan Africa, booming in Kenya and Nigeria. And in Asia, Japan, the Philippines, and India all have their presence. Their name? Opus Dei, the work of God. But the deadly interesting point of Opus Dei does not lie in the numbers. It lies in how they transform. Like a great chameleon, their institutional form changes depending on each country they root in. In Spain, Peru, or the Philippines, they expand their power through building giant educational institutions. Education, my friend, is the key to going straight into the mind and shaping the ideology of the future generation. But in the United States, or the United Kingdom, where educational bastions have already been shaped. They change tactics. They infiltrate through centers dedicated to professionals. They do not teach children. They train, connect, and tightly weave together the elites in the most critical sectors. What is the common thread of all these tactics? Their founder, Josemaría Escrivá, explicitly targeted the objective, the leaders. This organization aims straight at individuals in every country, every sector, those who hold in their hands the privilege of setting direction and making vital decisions. So, what is Opus Dei actually aiming to build? This is the central core question of every serious debate about this organization. And if you place this question on the table, you will receive two streams of answers that are ridiculously contradictory. If you knock on Opus Dei's door, read their official media channels, or speak with their theologians, the answer you get is always consistent from the day of establishment. Politics, secular power, we do not build those things. They will firmly assert that Opus Dei is purely a spiritual project. They are training ordinary individuals, helping them strive to live a life of extraordinary spiritual depth. What these members contribute to the world through their professional competence and ethics is a completely independent decision of theirs as free citizens. Don't be quick to scoff. That is not a fabricated, PR polished answer. The ironic truth is that is exactly what most Opus Dei members believe with their very lives that they are participating in. But we all know the history of power always has a hidden corner. Critics from various angles over the past few decades paint a picture that is anything but poetic. Let's string these facts together. You have an organization that systematically recruits the most talented and ambitious young people. You provide them with high-intensity training to graft absolute loyalty. You place them in the most elite institutions. You maintain a tight, vine-like network of communication with them throughout their careers, and you operate that machine on a global scale with a direct reporting line back to the Holy See and the Vatican. Regardless of how they describe themselves with soaring theological euphemisms, in essence, this is a political project of the most sophisticated kind. But do not confuse it with cheap conspiracy theories. This is not a group of hooded men sitting in a smoke-filled basement deciding who will win tomorrow's presidential election. No, it is more structural, more deeply rooted, and therefore 1,000 times more dangerous. It is about creating a network of people who share a common educational DNA. These people trust each other in blind ways they would never extend to an outsider. They understand the world through a theological and moral lens cast from the same mold. And entirely by coincidence, those very people are present in disproportionately high ratios in the exact places where humanity's momentous decisions are made. Pure spiritual project or sophisticated political machine? These two answers sound contradictory, but in reality, they are just describing the same entity from different viewpoints. The problem is, to construct a machine where spiritual training can generate unparalleled secular power, what philosophy did Opus Dei use? The secret lies in a book and a man. Do you think there is a clear boundary, a fortified wall separating holy spiritual practice and calculated secular influence? If you believe that, then you are truly a very naive soul. The history of humanity has proven time and again. The distance between a spiritual training furnace and a machine for seizing secular power is always far thinner than what those institutions, or even their enemies, wish to admit. Look at the Jesuits. Do not forget that Josemaría Escrivá, the father of Opus Dei, spent years thoroughly studying their every move, their every methodology. Or look at the most prestigious universities in the world today, the illustrious Ivy Leagues. Do you know what their starting point was? It was precisely religious educational foundations. Their process bears no magical or dark colors. It is a ruthlessly perfect mathematical equation. You place human beings into a training furnace. You mold their minds. Those human beings step out into the world, donning luxurious suits, holding judges' gavels, sitting in executive chairs. They bring with them exactly what you implanted in their heads. They only trust their own kind, those who have also passed through the exact same furnace of refinement. And then they begin to construct the world. Do not call that a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theories are usually only for lazy people who like sensationalism. No, that is simply the way great institutions operate. And Opus Dei, whatever face it may wear, remains one of the most ruthless and efficient operating machines, spanning from the late 20th century to the early 21st century. Do not say that person has a bad nature. Instead, say that he has not yet been forged. That is a quote taken from the book The Way, the most sacred foundational text of Escriva. I have flipped this quote over and over countless times in the process of seeking the solution to the Opus Dei puzzle. On the surface, oh, how forgiving it sounds. It is draped in the cloak of charity, an admonition to believers to be patient before human flaws. Because character is not something determined at birth. Character is something that can be bent, and salvation through training is always possible. How beautiful. But let us place it in the context of a global empire that Escriva took pains to construct. When stripping away the verbal wrapper, it is no longer moral advice. It is a manifesto of organizational philosophy. Character is not innate. Character is the product of the training process. And, ladies and gentlemen, the supreme rule here is, whoever controls the training process shapes the entire outcome generated. That is not Escriva's unique invention. That is the core logic of every power institution that has ever existed on this earth. It is the logic of the Jesuits, a force so powerful that when they were suppressed, the vacuum they left behind was large enough to pave the way for the rise of the famous Illuminati. It is the logic of the Skull and Bones secret society at Yale University, which has been quietly selecting and molding the elite youth of the United States for the past 200 years to insert them into the White House and the CIA. It is also the logic of the most renowned military academies, the most elite law schools, and the residency programs of giant hospitals. And that, in its nakedest form, when you strip away the brilliant theological paintcoats, is the DNA of Opus Dei. The important thing to clarify here is, we are not judging the existence of God, nor are we saying that the spiritual training process of Opus Dei members is a facade. It is highly possible that their devotion is pure. However, the forging of human psychology on an industrial scale, targeting strategic individuals, and then dropping them into critical sectors of society, that process in itself is a form of power. In fact, it is the oldest, deepest, and hardest to break form of power that humanity has ever discovered. It does not operate the way you think. It is not a chain of command from top to bottom. It does not run through ballot boxes, appointment decrees, or murky financial flows. Opus Dei does not send a secret telegram from Rome, ordering a member in Washington how to vote in a legal case, or forcing a director in London whom to hire. They do something far superior to that. they equip that member with an operating system. Let's take the example of a core member, numerary, someone who has vowed celibacy and dedicated everything, recruited and molded by Opus Dei since his early 20s. For decades, the organization provides him with a core value system, wraps him in a closed network of relationships, and sharpens his intuition regarding what constitutes a right judgment, so that when he stands before decisions that could change the destiny of a corporation or a nation, he needs no one to command him. His cognitive lens, his moral compass, his standards for evaluating and promoting people, all have been perfectly calibrated to automatically produce the exact outcome desired by the organization. Is it a well-calculated influence, or simply the natural consequence of a rigorous religious education? I don't know. It is very difficult to draw a distinct line. But in any formidable organization, the boundary between deep spiritual training and institutional-oriented manipulation is always and intentionally made blurry. I know exactly what has been clicking in your head this whole time. You are waiting for me to mention albino assassin monks, fanatics self-flagellating with leather whips until bleeding in dark rooms, or a secret society protecting the secret of Jesus Christ's descendants, right? Forget about it. Let Hollywood and Dan Brown do their job of selling tickets. It is time for us to grow up and look at the real world. After spending an amount of time long enough to ruin anyone's eyesight digging through mountains of documents, from Opus Dei's own internal texts, tearful memoirs, and the rage of former members, to dozens of academic research works about them that have mushroomed over the past 30 years, I can tell you this with certainty. Opus Dei is nothing like what popular culture paints. They are not a cult of medieval assassins, nor are they a sinister shadow organization wearing dark aprons, gathering around a stone table in a secret basement in Rome to determine the price of gold or rig presidential election results. Those cinematic images, my friends, are in fact merely products of fiction. They are born from the very anxiety, helplessness, and instinctive fear of human beings before hidden powers, the seed that always spawns countless conspiracy theories in every generation. We like to imagine villains with horns and fangs to easily pin blame. But, and here is a giant but, if you think that because they are not albino assassins, they are merely a benign voluntary association, a club of successful Catholic professionals who happen to take their faith very seriously, then you have once again fallen into a trap. Strip away that mask. The truth is not sensational, but it is far heavier and more terrifying. Opus Dei is a colossal organization. They are stinking rich with wealth reaching up to billions of dollars. They are distributed globally like a closed capillary network. They possess an iron discipline that every military would lust after. And above all, they have a clear purpose, razor sharp, like a surgical scalpel, to train and place influential figures into the most critical institutions of the world. And do you know what the most astonishing thing is? They have gritted their teeth and pursued that purpose, not deviating a single millimeter, not resting for a single day, with a spine-chilling consistency for nearly a century. So, what does all this mean? Should we applaud moral people trying to do good work in high positions, or should we be concerned before an invisible power-shaping society according to their intent? Is the boundary between spiritual training and institutional power truly as transparent as Opus Dei loudly claims? Do not expect a comforting, definitive answer. History has no room for that luxury. This is a problem that requires from us a persistent, enduring attention. Sadly, that is something our modern humanity rarely possesses. We are distracted by noisy things. We pay attention to shocking scandals, provocative tweets, those who beat the gongs and drums in the papers. We do not want to spend time monitoring things that do not flaunt their presence. And that is precisely Opus Dei's ultimate weapon: silence. This organization has never flaunted itself. They do not scream to be recognized. They were molded by Josemaría Escrivá, a man who fiercely believed that God wants humans to work silently in this world. Escrivá taught his followers to sanctify the world, not with miracles or bloody crusades, but with their own outstanding professional competence, absolute devotion to secular work, and silent daily prayers. All of those things are performed while absolutely drawing zero attention to themselves. Now, use your analytical thinking and answer me. That absolute silence, in the end, is it the noble virtue of humility of a true faith? Or is it a tactical discipline of a sophisticated organization who understand all too well that flashy ostentation will only invite jealousy, scrutiny, and opposition from enemies? The evidence, my friend, cannot yield a black and white answer. It is highly possible that it is not A or B. It is both. A perfect blend of the simplest devotion and the sharpest political calculation. And in the world of dark history, things with such dual natures are always the most dangerous and fascinating. After we have exposed the plots, the power doctrines, and the astonishing layers of organization spreading octopus tentacles across 5 continents, I want to take you to a place that might smash every bias you have built up over the past 20 minutes. Where we are standing right now is the quiet chapel containing the mortal remains of Josemaría Escrivá. Observe the people walking in here every day. Do not look through the eyes of a detective searching for a criminal. Look through the eyes of an observer of human life. Whom do you see? Priests in black cassocks, nuns, ordinary Catholic believers with rough hands, curious tourists wearing cameras. But look closer. You will see men in expensive hand-tailored bespoke suits worth tens of thousands of dollars kneeling beside a young man wearing frayed jeans. They come from the brightly lit cities of the First World and also from the red, dust-covered lands of the Third World. They come kneeling low beside this tomb, closing their eyes tight. Their lips mutter intimate words for a long time before they push themselves up with their hands, make the sign of the cross, and step back into the mortal world. No matter how powerful a Leviathan monster Opus Dei may be as an institution, no matter how terrifying the reality of politics, church power, or the billion-dollar fortune of this 90,000-member organization may be, then, my friends, I must admit one truth. The thing that draws those human beings out there to fly halfway around the earth, to come kneel and shed tears on this cold stone floor, is absolutely not power. People do not cry before a bank account. People do not pray before a political manipulation machine. What beckons them, ironically and beautifully, is instead a pure spiritual concept. It is the very thing that awakened a young, poor Spanish priest when he stepped out of a retreat house in Madrid in that turbulent year of 1928. Escriva stepped out onto the streets carrying no gold or silver, carrying no army. He carried a divine intuition. He fiercely believed, a belief burning so hot it could consume an entire human life, that he had just listened to an authentic, momentous, and specific message from the realm above. Do you know what that message was? For centuries, the Church taught people that to become holy, you must turn your back on the world. You must wear religious habits, bury yourself in a monastery, stay far away from money and fame. But that young priest said, no. Escriva believed that a simple life, that boring, tiring, repetitive life that you and I go through every day, could become a sacred thing. That whether you are an accountant burying your face in Excel spreadsheets, a street sweeper cleaning the streets at dawn, a surgeon saving lives, or a lawyer litigating in court, if you offer up the work produced by your hands and mind to God with the most complete mindfulness and effort, then that is not a second-class form of devotion. It is the greatest form of devotion. It is the most perfect way to live in harmony with the world, just as it is. You do not need to escape the world. You sanctify the world right at your desk. So beautiful, right? A liberating thought for humanity, a grand calling. But, and here is the cliff where everything can slide down into the abyss. Whether that priest was right about that message, and whether the giant machine, the institution of power named Opus Dei, built by him to protect and spread that faith, in the end honored it or corrupted it. Or, a more ruthless hypothesis, did it do both of those things at the same time? Simultaneously lighting up the souls of tens of thousands of people, while intertwining cold gears of power to manipulate a free world? I do not have the answer for you. No one does. The history of humanity never provides pre-packaged answers, neatly labeled and stamped with a warranty of truth. The history of the work of God is a book with pages blurred by both the tears of devout souls and the calculations of the most sophisticated political minds. That is the question that the existence of Opus Dei throws straight into the face of us, humanity, and in the end, when the spotlights turn off, when the debates about power and religion submerge into silence, that is exactly the most important question for which you must find the answer yourself. Be careful with what is happening in silence. I am Zorro. See you again in the next dark corners of dark history.